Hi, my name is Ashley, and if you saw my home tour, then you saw this cute little cushion which we make for our brand called Cool & Brown. I'm going to show you how to make a cushion like this for your home today using a process called rug hooking or punch needling. So let's get started. So first we're going to start with the materials that you need, and you're not going to need a lot. This is a really simple and easy process, and I'm going to show you as we're working together a few of the little tips so that you're successful at what you make. So the first thing you're going to need is a backing cloth. We use all different types of backing cloth, but my favorite is monk's cloth. You want to use something that's easy to see through. If you can see those cute little squares and see your fingers or your hands behind it or underneath it, then you've got the type of cloth that's going to give you the best results. The next thing you're going to need is an embroidery hoop. We love round cushions over at Cool & Brown, and the hoop that you want to use is a non-slip hoop. This particular craft is the art of tension, and what you want to make sure you do is keep your project inside the loops. So we love non-slip hoops because they have these interlocking features that make sure that your projects stay inside the hoop. So non-slip hoops, don't forget it. The next thing you're gonna need is yarn. I use any type of yarn, acrylic yarn, wool yarn, any kind of yarn. I like to use thicker yarn. That's kind of my secret. So that way I get done with my projects a lot faster. If you're gonna be using your projects as a rug, like something you're gonna be walking on, then make sure you use a rug yarn. You definitely don't wanna be ruining your projects by walking over top of yarn that's gonna fall apart a little bit faster. The next thing you're gonna need is a punch needle. I stand by, live by the Amy Oxford number 10 regular punch needle. I have used all the different types of needles there are, and nothing comes close to like the way you can hold it in your hand. It is really, really easy to load front to back, and honestly, nothing comes close. You can use it with thicker yarns, thinner yarns. You can also use this needle to punch with different types of fibers like jute or twine or even plastic. Some people even use old t-shirts, anything that you can make into strips and use for in place of your yarn is good. So the Amy Oxford number 10 punch needle, you will not need anything else, trust me. So your last couple of tools are scissors, and it's actually important that you get the right type of scissors so that way you're not fraying your monk's cloth. I like to get really good, sharp fabric scissors to cut my monk's cloth. That way you get clean breaks and you don't have to worry about things really fraying when you're doing all your stretching. And with embroidery scissors, you can get really close and deep down with these little, really tight little ends. So embroidery scissors, fabric scissors, and a marker of any kind. I just use a basic Sharpie to do all of my doodles and drawings. So let's start. All right, so I've talked about rug hooking as the art of tension, and some people ask like, where's the glue? How do you keep your loops from slipping out? As long as your backing cloth is tight, every single thing will fall into place. So the first thing I'm going to do with my non-slip hoop is get my monk's cloth over the inner ring. And then just get that outer ring on there and give yourself enough space on each side of the ring. All right, so right now, this is not the ideal tautness. You want this to sound almost like a drum, and we're not there yet. So what I like to do is flip this over and start pulling all the way around. And you want to pull tight. And as you make your way around, make it tighter. You want to get almost to where these two things are touching each other. Remember, if you want to keep those loops in and you want to keep your project from sliding, this is all about tightness. All right, so let's try it. Almost. You can also rug hook on things like stretcher bars with the monk's cloth stretched across with carpet tacks. I've seen people use picture frames. You can use just about anything. All right. Oh yeah, that's what we want. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is our design. So I'm really, really inspired by Matisse-like shapes and also circles and just weird things like, I don't know, different groupings and pairings, little dots and things like that. You can also cut out shapes and put them down if you're not used to freehanding yet, but you can do also really simple things like checkers, polka dots, whatever makes you happy. I love Matisse shapes, so I'm just gonna make my favorite little blobby blobs They feel very SpongeBob-y. And your shapes don't have to be perfect because as you're punching, you're gonna make your own lines anyway. So play around with shapes, lines, whatever makes you feel good. Make donuts, make X's, make half moons, make E's, make Y's, whatever feels good. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how to load up your needle, and to save yourself a little bit of a headache, you want to make sure you do one thing. Give yourself a lot of room. Sometimes you'll find that when you're punching through, your loops will start to slip out, and usually that means you haven't given yourself enough of a tail and it's a little too tight on the end. So make sure you give yourself a lot of space. So we're going to go through the eye like this, pull through, and then literally pull through the slit. I'm going to pull up to get it to go in and then pull down to give myself just a little bit of a tail, and that's it. You're ready to go. So we're going to just punch through one of our lines, and it's a really simple process. Sometimes people get a little hung up on how far should their stitches be, how close should they be, how should they hold their needle. I personally hold my needle with my, of course, dominant hand and punch away from myself. If you're just starting out, just punch the way that feels most comfortable to your hand, kind of like handwriting almost. All right, so make sure that your needle goes all the way down to the bottom of the monk's cloth. That's really, really important. Because we talk about this being the art of tension, if you go all the way down to the bottom, when you pull back up, that monk's cloth is going to hold that yarn tight, and then you can move on to the next stitch. I usually let my needle touch down to the next part of the line and then go down, up, and I'll just turn my embroidery hoop to go whichever direction. People are always like, how big should my stitches be? You can do larger stitches. The punch needles come with stitch gauges, so you can see that every inch should have about 3 or 4 stitches maximum. You can also see underneath here what it looks like when you're punching. Sometimes people like to flip it over and use the loop side. I personally like the stitch side. That's how I finish all my projects, with the stitch side. All right, so I'm just gonna punch another row, and you can see the loops sort of sticking inside the monk's cloth. So as long as your monk's cloth is really tight, the backing cloth gets tighter and tighter and tighter until you really can't pull these loops out. What I like to do with my projects though when I finish is cover the inside with Elmer's glue. That is helpful for when we're selling our products, to make sure that folks' projects don't come loose. Another thing that people ask is how can they be washed? And I like to spot wash mine. Some people do machine washing, especially if they make them out of rug yarn, which is much, much more durable, but just spot wash or spot cleanse. Or make projects that have darker colored yarns so they last a little bit longer. All right, so I'm just gonna show you what it's like to pull this out and move on to another color. I just hold down and pinch, pull my needle up, and then use my embroidery scissors to cut really close so you can never see where I started or where I ended. And then I also use the ends to like tuck it in. And you can keep filling in, or you can switch to another color, whatever makes you happy. And then what I do is pull them off the embroidery hoop, add a backing cloth, sew it, stuff it, and then we have a cushion. Super cute, very original, and unique to your home. If you like this video, subscribe to Handmade for more really fun projects just like this.